earlier, we played this for you. We'll play it again if you're just joining us. Kyle Shanahan on the TK Pod. Did you hear Shanahan say somehow that there will be a quarterback competition?
What I can see is what Brock did in his games last year. People give him a lot of credit. They gave our team a lot of credit, but I know how good he played. And I think anybody who really sits and watches it, whether it's our teammates, whether our coaches, I mean, it was strong in the season, but it got stronger in the offseason. It's because what he put on tape was real. And that's what makes it easy, the situation we're in. Now, Trey and Sam, they have the ability to do that stuff. It is harder for them to do it in practice and to jump a guy who we've seen do it in 7 games like that. That's the harder situation. It's a sad situation I'm happy about, though. Now, maybe he has a setback. Maybe he's rusty and stuff and because of his injury and stuff. I don't know. I don't think he will be. I think he'll get back to that point. And then these other guys can play, too. Maybe he does get an injury, and Sam or Trey get an opportunity just like Brock did last year. All of this can happen to each one of them. I know the way that we all would have drawn it up because of how we spent our draft picks. And that's the way it was going to go. Injuries happen. And when injuries happen, you don't really lose your job because of injury, but you give opportunities to someone else. And this guy who got his opportunity came in and did stuff on film for me, for John, for all our players. That was as good as we've seen here. And it's going to be real hard to beat out.
Okay, so everyone, last sentence is real hard to beat out. What about the sentence before that? Brock Purdy has put things on tape that is as good as any quarterback since we've been here.
Stuff.
Yeah, and stuff.
Yeah, he put stuff on tape.
I mean, we're all going, hey, Purdy, Lance, Darnold. What I just heard is Brock Purdy's played 8 games, and I already like him pretty much more than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, he's put stuff on tape that we haven't seen, and he did stuff for John. He did stuff for me. He did stuff for his teammates. He put these things on tape that we haven't seen. And if you hear the beginning of that cut, he's almost giddy at the fact that he went back and looked at the tape of Brock Purdy.
And it got better. Yeah. And he's clearly said a bunch of times that Darnold and or Lance's opportunities would come through injury. So I think you and I took that clear. That does not mean there's a quarterback competition. But the confirmation bias that is reigning free throughout this entire thing, that's what some people heard. Now, this one's different. What about Deebo Samuel, Dibs? What do you hear on this one?
Quarterback competition is going to be a really good one. You know, Trey's you asked me, Trey's got better since the last time I've saw him from due to his injury. He's got better. So, I'm excited to see how this camp is going to go.
Okay. Quarterback competition is going to be great. Trey looks better.
Yeah.
Excited to see how this camp goes.
Right. No mention of Brock, and
that's what I was waiting for.
Feels like the quarterback competition that he's talking about is for QB2 because Brock's the one. I mean, I don't think that Deebo is forgetting about Brock or thinks that Trey might be the one instead of Brock. It feels to me like the quarterback competition he's talking about is for QB2.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that one as well. Deebo was asked to expand a little bit on what he said about Trey Lance looking better.
The way the ball is coming out, he used to throw the ball kind of hard a lot. But he kind of got a great touch to his ball now. He's more comfortable. He's more relaxed back there. He's a little bit more porous to me.
Okay, that's an interesting one. And I'll buy that. I think I saw that. Again, limited amount of things that we've seen. We've been down to camp now twice. OTAs once, camp once, to watch Trey Lance throw. And the other quarterbacks as well. And yeah, I do think sometimes there were, the ball that you just throw it out in the flat to the guy that's 8 yards away from you. It was coming in a little hot in years past. Not so much this time around. I have no problem telling you Trey Lance to me looked better. I still think there's a larger issue that's facing Trey Lance right now, which is this is the number 3 overall pick in the draft. You have a huge trade in order to get that pick. You select Trey Lance. Injuries happen. We know the story. We get to this point, and while the world is running around going, you got to give Trey a shot at 1, the 49ers are like, we already have a 1. And oh, by the way, we're not even going to declare him the 2. We're not even going to say he's got a leg up on the 2. It would be different to me if the sound over the last 24 hours had been, look, Trey's our backup quarterback. Sam is a guy we really like. First time to get him in this system. Also a highly selected quarterback and has more experience. So there's an openness to see how that goes. But Trey's our presumptive too.
Yeah.
Didn't even do that.
No.
They didn't even do that.
Nobody said that. And it's Deebo's talking about a competition, and Kyle Shanahan is talking about how many quarterbacks he has, who they like in terms of, quarterbacks. And what he said about Brock Purdy was that they love Brock Purdy even more now, having looked back at the film, and Brock Purdy's going to be healthy, and so he's the starter. So for Trey Lance, he's in a fight for his career right now to be QB2, or else he might be elsewhere.
So maybe that's what Deebo's getting into. Maybe that's what Deebo's getting into, and I'll say it again, said it yesterday. We are about to enter the most discussed, most followed backup quarterback battle in the history of the NFL. I've been watching football since I was 7 years old. I cannot remember ever in my life, thank you, that's 41 years now, I do not ever remember, first of all, even caring who the backup quarterback was, outside of Steve Young, I guess. And then I certainly cannot ever remember following a battle for number 2. A camp battle to see who was going to be the backup. You want to talk about things that's hard to get on a fan's radar, that would be it. But here we are. It's the lead story. The defensive player of the year is not in camp, and they're in the middle of contract negotiations. Nobody cares.
No.
Nobody even brought it up today. I don't think it's a thing, and maybe that's why. I don't think it's a thing at all. I think Nick Bosa is going to sign, and everything's going to be absolutely fine there. But in most camps, that would, be discussed. It would be brought up. No one's looking for anything but these guys.
It'd be the lead story is what it would be.
Normally.
Yeah, the fact that your number one pass rusher, a guy who's going to get the richest contract in defensive football history, is not signed, and he's not in camp. Not that he needed to be today, because you're not tackling anyway, and it's mostly just side work and individual work. And, today was about the 7-on-7 and the 11-on-11, where, guys are in helmets, but the padded helmet, the soft padded, great Gazoo helmet and shorts, and not doing any hitting. So Nick Bosa didn't need to really be there, but that would normally be the lead story. Or it would be what's up with the quarterback, but it's not even about the quarterback. It's about the backup quarterback. And tomorrow will be about the quarterback, because Brock Purdy will be back on the field.
Yes.
He's going to practice, and he's going to throw. And so all eyes on that right elbow and how he looks. But for today, it was about the backup quarterback.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app. And I thought you had a really good observation from being out there today, which is the sound of the fans when Trey Lance did something versus the sound when other quarterbacks did something. Now, this almost will sound obvious. The fans sort of rose to the edge of their seat, and the media too. You could watch that was like, because if you don't know what a practice looks like, it's just kind of like every 5 to 10 minutes, these horns blow and everybody starts doing something different.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, punt team. Here we go. Okay, now we do punt team, and everybody's just like, all right, now I can talk to my friend. Because the punt team, oh, here come the kickers.
They weren't even kicking. It was the long snapper, and then the punter would fake like he was going to kick it, and then they would put the ball in a jugs machine and launch it to Ray McLeod, who was 65 yards downfield, so he could catch a punt.
Right. Kittle is right in front of the fans. He's working on hand drills with somebody draped over his back. Ayuk and Deebo are running their routes, and you're just like, damn, the Niners have a core this year at receiver to have that 1-2 punch. And don't forget third and Juwan. He's out there doing his darn thing also. All this stuff is happening, and there's just sort of a like, cool, 49er practice is happening. And then the horn, 11-on-11, and here come the QBs.
Yep.
And everyone's sort of just like, okay, we're going to put the conversation on hold, and pens start coming out of people's pockets.
We got to chart this.
Get a little notepad. People start moving. I got to move over here, get a good angle on it, right? Bonte and Joe, at one point I saw them kind of whisper to each other, and they're like, we're heading to the other side of the field. They did not want to be bothered because they wanted to focus on the QBs. And the starter's not even there. He's not even there. So this is a completely unique situation. And then having Brandon Allen get as much conversation as he's had is the other thing that stands out to me as something I've never seen before. And Eric Branch with an interesting Q&A with Kyle Shanahan about the idea of even having 4 quarterbacks.
When Purdy is like a full go and is practicing all the time, do you still envision having 4 quarterbacks here?
Yeah.
I don't believe you've ever done that before. I know you touched on this a little bit yesterday, but is it just because Brandon Allen you think is talented enough to stay?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted 3 in OTAs. We had 2 for the first part, so we want to add a 3, and we really liked him so far. So, we don't want to just get rid of guys we like.
Yeah, Kyle was a little bit quicker today.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I'm totally guessing here. I think he's fine. But, he spent some time talking about Brandon Allen yesterday. And I found that interesting, that his brain even went there when people were start talking about the order of the QBs. Bonte tweeted something I agreed with after one day, which is this idea that, they've got Brandon Allen, which means they can trade Trey. He was like, well, I've only watched for one day, but I'm not trading Trey Lance because Brandon Allen's there based on what I saw today.
Right.
And I agree with that completely. But I also don't know if that fully is what the 49ers are thinking. I don't think it's trade Trey because we have Brandon Allen, but let's call this what it is. Like, why do you have Brandon Allen? Why are you going to give your QB 4 reps? You said yesterday he's earned that. Most NFL teams don't even have that. That's interesting. That is precious time that they are giving to Brandon Allen. Why?
Because you needed 4 QBs last year.
Yeah, but
you needed
that,
5.
But that's
Mark.
not the answer. I
think that's part of the answer.
You
Absolutely,
think so?
yes.
You think that they're actually going in to this season? I get the PTSD, but can you structure your roster in such a way where you're like, well, we always lose quarterbacks, so
in July
we
you
need
can.
extra ones.
I think that you look at it in the end of July and you think 4 quarterbacks is better than 3 because we might need 3.
Okay.
And if we need 3, then I want a competition for who QB3 is going to be. And I think you keep Brandon Allen because you might trade Trey Lance, but you also keep Brandon Allen because you might trade Brandon Allen. And so you want to embrace Brandon Allen.
What are you going to get for Brandon Allen?
Maybe a 7th? And with a 7th round pick, you got Brock Purdy. So
that would surprise me if you could get a draft pick for Brandon Allen. But go ahead.
It depends on what's going on with other quarterback situations.
If they're desperate.
Brandon Allen has been a quarterback in the NFL. He's shown that he can play at this level. And so it does you no good to disrespect Brandon Allen or Trey Lance or Sam Darnold or any of your quarterbacks. You got 4 in camp, and that's okay.
I guess my thought on it is this. An NFL team, the tradition, and maybe the 49ers are just bucking tradition, but the tradition would be if we get to QB3, we're dust. And you can be okay with that. There's no NFL team, and that's one of the most impressive things that happened last year. I know how it ended. They got to QB5, which doesn't exist, and they lost a football game. So that's one half of the story. The other part of the story is the 49ers got to a spot that traditionally means graveyard. Your season is dead. And when they got there, they got better. That is completely wild.
Right.
I think NFL teams are normally okay with that risk, if you will. If we get to our 3rd or 4th QB, shrug your shoulders. That didn't go our way. What are you going to do? That's kind of the way they build their rosters. Are you saying the 49ers, based on last year and to a degree years prior, are blowing that up and now prioritizing?
Yes.
QB4?
At least QB3.
Interesting.
And think about last year. What happened with their QB3? They had a guy who they gave guaranteed money to, and he competed against a guy who was the last pick in the draft as a rookie. And you had Jimmy Garoppolo on the kiddie field, and you weren't sure what you were going to do, but you had Sudsy, you had Sudfeld.
Well, he was supposed to be too.
Exactly, and that's my point. So at this time last year, your depth chart was Trey Lance, Sudfeld, Brock Purdy, and then Jimmy Garoppolo was off to the side, and you didn't even know what you were going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. By the time you broke camp, your depth chart was Trey Lance, Garoppolo, and Purdy, which tells me you had a competition last year for QB2 and QB3. And you look at this year. Right now it's Brock Purdy, 1, and then you have a 3-man battle for 2 spots. Now, you're not going to keep 4 quarterbacks, I don't think, when you break camp in the end of August into September. You're going to keep 3. But why not have all 4 of them now and let the 3 of them duke it out for QB2 and QB3? It does you no disservice.
No, you're absolutely right now. I guess the disservice that is the thinking in my mind is exactly what Eric Branch asked Kyle Shanahan today. So let's we get it. Brandon Allen's out there today because Brock's not. But in theory, what happens tomorrow? Okay, Brock is in.
Yep.
Is Brandon Allen still getting reps? And then what happens 2 weeks from now when Brock is a full clear? Are you still giving reps to Brandon Allen? And Kyle just looked at him and went, yep. I want everyone to know that's not normal. Now, maybe you can just quickly answer that by saying, well, the 49er quarterback situation is not normal.
It's not, but it's not a complete aberration. If you look around the league right now at all the 32 depth charts, you would find a lot of situations where teams have 4 quarterbacks.
Not giving them reps. Not when Patrick Mahomes is healthy and in practice, QB4 is not getting a turn.
Well, it depends on what you mean by reps. Because when Kansas City has their first preseason game, Patrick Mahomes is probably not going to play.
Well, right.
So you're playing QB2, QB3, and QB4 in those games.
But that was the question today. The question today was, what about when Purdy's in there? Are you still rocking some reps for QB4? And he's like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're not wrong, but also there are a lot of teams who don't have 4 quarterbacks. There are a lot of teams who don't. Most of them do right now because camp is literally just opening. But a lot of them don't/won't, and I'll give you.
The Chiefs actually have
they have 4.
A kid out of South Dakota State,
and he's not getting reps. Right
now, he probably is because Patrick Mahomes. You don't need to see anything from Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes gets whatever reps he gets, and then hit the shower, kid, and we'll see what we have from Shane Buechele and Oladokin, who is the 4-string guy.
The Rams have 5 in their camp right now.
Of course they do.
Yeah. I wonder how many the Cardinals have in their camp.
They probably have 4.
No, they have 5. One of them's Kyler Murray, though.
Yeah, so he's not really in camp.
Yeah.
He's trying to get healthy.
No, these guys are they're going to end up on practice squads and things like that, and they'll run the scout team, and they'll do all those things that other guys do. This feels different. Kyle now 2 days in a row. One time he's been asked about him and gave him a big old pat on the back. Yesterday he wasn't even asked about him, and he brought him up. And he was just overwhelmingly impressed by Brandon Allen in OTAs. So they are, they're not giving him a ton, but they are offering time and valuable plays. They're sending their other players out on routes, and they're giving that to Brandon Allen.
Right.
And I'm just like, why? If you ask Kyle that right now, well, we like the guy, but
exactly.
But on the real, Kyle, why? Why are you doing that right now?
Because he might be our 2nd or 3rd best quarterback, and Trey Lance might be QB4. And if Trey Lance is QB4, and I'm not saying that I believe that or that Kyle Shanahan has indicated that, but let's just say in Kyle's mind, he's done with Trey Lance, and he's going to trade Trey Lance. Then you better get Brandon Allen ready as QB3 to back up Sam Darnold.
Well, but that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Like, if you were sure, you're like, okay, we showed up at camp, Brock is healthy, we're ready to rock, and 2 weeks from now, no training wheels. We're not even giving him days off. And as I've said on podcasts and stuff, I love Sam and I love Trey, and they're going to get as many reps as possible as well behind Brock Purdy. If you get to that point, okay, why are you still also dedicating time to Brandon Allen? And if your answer is, well, because you might trade Trey, well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. That's kind of interesting.
Well, and I also think part of it is you might need 3 quarterbacks, and God help us if we need 4 quarterbacks, because we've needed it If you look at Kyle Shanahan's run as the head coach of the Niners, only one time has he had one quarterback start all the games. And I know part of that was because they had guys who were bums, but usually it's because guys get hurt.
I think the Jacksonville Jaguars, for example, have what teams would like to be the standard as far as how they handle camp. You remember who Trevor Lawrence's backup is, don't you?
Of course.
You remember?
Yeah.
Don't you?
Of course.
Come on.
It's Blake Bortles.
Niners ties, drafted by Shanny.
It's C.J. Beathard.
All right. C.J. Beathard is how it is pronounced.
And then Nathan Rourke is the 3. Rourke, we call him.
So you have a guy who no matter what, is starting 17 games if he's healthy. You have your experienced backup who's been there for a couple of years, and then some rook that you grabbed in the draft. That's it. Go time. That's the norm. At least I know it's still July. Once you get halfway through August, that's kind of the norm.